think about everything is energy and frequency. We are bioelectrical beings. So everything is energy and frequency. And Bitcoin, it's energy money. This neutral global money is going to enable and promote the cooperation and peace that is coming in this new period. So I had that whole tech financial background. And then I had a lot of intuitive, energetic, bioenergetic training and experience in my private practice. And if you expand that into even a more global or even more cosmic perspective, we are in the midst of a massive global transformation, a radical paradigm shift. And it's more of like an evolutionary leap as humans. So decentralization, equality, individual sovereignty, global, borderless, truth, transparency, all of the qualities of Bitcoin are also totally in alignment with where we're headed.
How did you get started with Bitcoin? And also, you wrote a note to me, like how Bitcoin relates to, how did you say, like the transformation of consciousness or something like that, which is super interesting. How did you get started with Bitcoin, and how did you find the connection there also?
Yeah, exactly. Well, as we were just talking about in a little bit of an intro, most people are talking about the financial aspect of Bitcoin, the price predictions, how to accumulate it, how to live or retire on it, what going all in on it means, and how much of the $900 trillion asset market will it capture, and selling your house or your real estate portfolio, and liquidating financial portfolios, and the collapse of fiat, and all this kind of first world focusing on Bitcoin of number go up. And of course, energy optimization, human rights, global financial freedom. But I really look at it from that perspective, and I'll tell you a little bit of my background in a minute. And I also look at it from a very different perspective. And Bitcoin is truly a change agent for growth, inner growth and external growth. Many people have experienced that, that moment that changed everything. The realization of what Bitcoin is, and they're kind of, blew the top of their head off, and what it means for you personally, but also what it means for the planet. And for those that experience it kind of at the personal level, it frequently moves them into a low time preference, right? And they gain clarity around and make new choices around health and lifestyle and relationships and family and home and education and even community, the people they want to be hanging with. And they end up valuing or clarifying their values around generosity and integrity and collaboration and communication, and realizing the importance of personal sovereignty on nearly every level in their life. And if you expand that into even a more global or even more cosmic perspective, we are in the midst of a massive global transformation, a radical paradigm shift. And it's more of like an evolutionary leap as humans. And I'll talk a little bit more about the specifics of that later. But Bitcoin is going to provide a financial, a social, and also a spiritual foundation of a radically new era that we are entering. People talk about how, will this be like the development or the adoption of the internet? And this transformation that we're in is going to be way bigger and way more profound. So you asked me, how did I get into this? And let me kind of back up a little bit and explore a little bit of how I got to that realization. I think I've been, I don't know if it's orange pilled twice, but like red pilled and then orange pilled in my life. So I've had a life that's contained a really broad range of different careers and experiences, big zigs and zags throughout my life. I mean, when I was younger, I was in the arts, dance and the arts. And living in New York, I realized I couldn't live on that kind of salary. So I had to get into something that was going to be a little more lucrative. So I joined a primary dealer and became a fixed income trader on Wall Street for several years. And then I wasn't, when you've got $50, $100 million trades on, I wasn't sleeping at night. So I ended up teaching myself computer languages and moving into technology and developing trader workstation software and the things that I needed. And I ended up as head of tech support for one of the hottest computer companies at the time that was just coming into Wall Street, Sun Microsystems. Some people have heard of that. So I ended up as head of tech support for Manhattan for Sun Microsystems. And then got hired away by American Express as director of corporate technology strategy. So that was kind of like my, tech and finance corporate career. And I had this red pill moment where I realized what the matrix was that is corporate America. And I had a personal event that just really woke me up to what is reality. And it did a little bit of a rug pull for me on what's real, what is real. And I realized through this event that everything is energy, that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And we are way bigger than this three-dimensional human experience. And I started exploring, I started meditating and, exploring a whole bunch of different options. And I just couldn't continue in my corporate job. So I ended up leaving it. And really, that event kind of did a 180-degree shift in my life. And I started exploring new directions that were much more in the energetic and spiritual realms. So for the last few decades, what I've really been focusing on is supporting deep personal growth for clients through a private consulting practice, making use of advanced bioenergetic therapeutic methods. And, for my clients. And then for me, exploring spirituality and consciousness at many, many different levels. So, and that route has led me way far out beyond the leading edge of the normal three-dimensional reality paradigm. So I ended up getting certified in seven. It's like the seven dwarves. I can never remember all seven of them, but I got certified in seven different growth and healing methods and systems, and did a lot of Zen and Siddha yoga meditation, multi-day retreats over, and contributed chapters to 2 books and had a nationwide online radio show that interviewing thought leaders in the space at the time around creativity and energy medicine and epigenetics. And throughout my life, I've had this unique ability to access kind of both sides of my brain really easily, the left linear, analytical, logical side, and the right holistic, creative, intuitive mind. It's almost like a bridge brain, that I can move easily between the two. And it allows me to kind of recognize non-obvious connections quickly and intuitively. So I had that whole financial background, and then I had a lot of intuitive, energetic, bioenergetic training and experience in my private practice. So Bitcoin, how does Bitcoin come into all this? I was introduced to Bitcoin by a friend of mine in 2017. And I swear, because I think people who have a tech and a finance background have a harder time actually accepting it. I totally dismissed it, right? I just said, I know what money is. This isn't money, right? This can't be money. I totally discounted it because of that financial training and experience. And then nearly almost exactly 4 years ago, February of 21, I heard the Michael Seyr, Ross Stevens hour-long interview. It was Michael Seyr interviewing Ross, I think, during the Bitcoin for Corporations conference that Seyr was putting on. And I assume you know who Ross Stevens is. Are you familiar? Yeah, chairman of executive chair of NIDIG, New York Digital Investment Group, and CEO of Stone Ridge. Brilliant. He's as brilliant as Seyr, PhD in finance. And I saw this hour-long interview, and all of a sudden, all the pieces just fell into place. The tech, the finance, the spiritual, the energetic, like where this whole thing was going, like a strong intuitive hit on what Bitcoin was and where it was going. So I got the tech piece, I got the financial piece, I got the energetic spiritual aspects of it. And I got this huge intuitive hit about the role it was going to play in the global change that was emerging. I mean, it wasn't the kind of life-changing awakening that so many Bitcoiners have when they're orange-pilled. It's almost more like the last puzzle piece fell into place to support the massive global transformation that I was already aware of, that we were already on the brink of. So internally I had this feeling of like, oh yes, that's the piece that was missing. So I kind of came at it, from the backside, right? Rather than having the orange pill moment going, Bitcoin. It was like, almost like I was hunting for this piece. And then that last piece that was Bitcoin fell into place. And I went, oh, got it. So I had to kind of, it's like I'd been living the same realizations that Bitcoiners get to about personal sovereignty and what's important and their values for years. And I'd been living my life from that level of clarity. And I'm still learning and releasing old patterns and, growing an understanding of how the cosmos is evolving. But I've basically been on that path for quite a while. So discovering Bitcoin was like the capstone, on something rather than a door opening. So it was like a mini orange pill experience rather than the big one that most people get. Because I'd already been living a lot of the values, that Bitcoiners move towards as they get into Bitcoin. So since 2021, I've, stack of books back there, thousands of hours of podcasts. Thank goodness for podcasts. My goodness, they're amazing. And, in 21, hundreds of hours in Clubhouse. Were you ever on Clubhouse? So listening to, American Hodl and just all the folks that were on Clubhouse, during those days. And I kept getting the same questions from people I would try an orange pill. So I ended up developing an online class called Bitcoin Curious. And, in 75 minutes covered what is money, how is it broken, how does Bitcoin fix this, what's the FUD you'll encounter, where's Bitcoin headed, and how to get safely started with it. And, did that for a couple of years. And then a little over a year ago, I was invited to join the Bitcoin Advisor. And I know you're familiar with them because you have had we've got 40 global advisors, and you have had Daz B and Luke Broyles and Peter Dunworth and Seb Bunny and, Freddie New, I think, on your podcast. It's a phenomenal team. We've got Hoddlenot and Newt Svanholm and Krista Edmonds, of Access Tribe, Surfer Jim. Everybody knows Surfer Jim, right? Terrence Michael, who wrote Proof of Money. So it's a phenomenal team. And we're helping folks purchase, manage, and secure their Bitcoin, get it off exchanges, and eliminate themselves as the single point of failure through multi-sig collaborative custody and estate planning and tax strategies and education. So, I've been really involved in that over the past year, in addition to, my private orange pilling of folks. It's interesting how a lot of people talk about you have to have an ego death to really hodl Bitcoin. You have to just get your ego out of the way. And it's almost like I experienced that ego death years and years ago during my whole transformation, a couple decades ago. And I have such utter confidence in what Bitcoin is. Hodling it is like the easiest thing in the world. I love watching where the price is. What is it? 84.5 right now. I'm like, yay, let's stack some more. It's so easy just to hold it. I've never been tempted at all to sell any. And when I when I started hodling in 21, it's like, I think I started at like 29. It went up to 68K and then, tanked back down to 15 the next year. But I have not sold a sat aside from little bits and pieces for folks, through hot wallets and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I got into it all. And, there's another piece I want to talk about just in terms of how Bitcoin intersects with this global transformation that we're in. But I just want to kind of open up the door and see if you have any particular questions, because I realize I've been just, rattling on here.
There's a lot of interesting things. First of all, the Bitcoin Advisor was already very present on my podcast. There are probably like 10 plus people from this, from the list that you said. I think only Hoddlenot was not on. Like, I think all the names that you named, I think I had them all on. So like they have been very present already on the podcast. Some even like twice. For example, Peter Dunworth. Peter Dunworth is actually with his 2 videos in the top 22 times of my podcast.
He's amazing. He's just brilliant, and he's so articulate. I mean, I love pulling him into, to client sessions, just kind of a little backup and have him give his perspective, because he's so articulate and incredibly knowledgeable with his 20 years of being a financial advisor to high net worth individuals and family offices. Yeah, he's fantastic.
And there's a lot of interesting things in there that you said. I mean, obviously, what I thought about, like your red pilling moment and then the final coffin with the orange pill, it's what usually, as you described, Bitcoiners go through after they realized with Bitcoin. And there's this meme that Bitcoiners are unemployable. So like they don't want to do the normal standard 9 to 5. They usually try to find some other arrangement. I mean, probably most Bitcoiners are still employed, but there's like this awakening moment of like, oh, like my time is actually my most valuable thing, and I don't want to waste it working for someone else's dream. And what I also found interesting, before we start going with like what's the new era, you talked about inner growth versus external growth, and left and right brain, which is super fascinating, because those are 2 things that I think actually have never been on the podcast, and something that I have been researching a little bit. I'm not super deep into that, but maybe let's start with the inner and the external growth. What do you mean by that?
So we have a lot of, external growth in terms of how we're trained, how we're socialized, how we're educated, all these external influences that kind of make an imprint on us. They condition us. We create beliefs. We create a kind of sense of what is true for us. I call it the small t truths, not the capital T truths of, the larger truths in the universe, like, gravity or whatever. But they condition us to think a certain way, to be a certain way. And so that's kind of that external imprint. And sometimes we have to, so there's external growth through that, learning, education, those kinds of things. But the internal growth comes from when you start to question that. Who am I really? Who am I without these imprints, without these, the conditioning, social conditioning, religious, familial, cultural, even sometimes from trauma. We can have imprints from trauma that have happened to us. So when we start looking at those and really kind of questioning, who am I at the core of me? What is my essence without all of the stuff that's kind of layered on top? And we start exploring kind of that inner perspective and figuring out who we are. Over these last few decades, I've done a boatload of my own kind of personal growth work that I do with clients now, with entrepreneurs and business leaders, advanced personal growth. I call it graduate school for personal growth because we're using really advanced bioenergetic methods and tools. And I've done all of that myself to kind of clear out all of the conditioning that may not have been so helpful. I grew up with a military and an engineer father, and that the standards were very high and you had to meet them. And so I grew up kind of like type AA personality, which I think is why I ended up in tech and on Wall Street. It's like, I'm going to be really successful in the big, hard areas. And that wasn't actually really good fit for my nature, So clearing out the beliefs that I had to be a certain way, that I had to achieve in a certain way, what success looked like, finding kind of what was truer for me. So that inner growth, peeling away those layers. I call it success through subtraction, right? Peeling away those layers that weren't me to begin with, and really kind of figuring out what my true essence is and being able to express that, which is kind of how I've ended up here.
It's super interesting. The first time I thought about things like that is I call it the Olympia winner depressions. They have this external thing that have got them motivated for so long, of like, okay, winning that one medal. And once they got it, they feel like, okay, like now I reached it. Now I'm there where I always wanted to be.
Right.
And now what? Like what else is there to achieve? And they don't have that inner component. They don't have something sustainable, but they just reached at one point, and they enjoyed the journey, and now the journey is came to an end.
Exactly. And it can be really challenging. It's like, I see this all the time with people who retire, and, no matter what age they are, it used to be, 60s, whatever, but with Bitcoiners, it's even earlier. And they're like, what do I do with myself? What's my purpose? Why am I here? Who am I? And one of the things I really focus on, I don't have goals with clients, but if I had an overarching goal, it would be helping them have the clearest, fullest expression of who they are in the world. That full creative expression of who they are in the world. That's really in alignment with who they are.
It's the hardest to find out. One thing also, with maybe it touches on that a little bit, of the left versus the right brain. Mm-hmm. What do you think is more present with Bitcoiners? Probably the right one.
Well, it's. I mean, I think people who have a science and a tech background are attracted to it. They get it a little quicker, I think, than some folks who may be more on the artistic side, the creative side, the intuitive, holistic side. But I'm starting to see more and more folks showing up in my Twitter feed, who are artists, who are musicians, who are in that realm, who get this, who get Bitcoin not just as a financial freedom, grow up technology, but a global freedom, a human rights support, all of these kinds of things that are much more kind of right brain than they are left brain. So I'm starting to see more showing up in that realm in terms of people who are understanding what Bitcoin is. And we're so early. I mean, I was seeing the charts recently that were coming out on Twitter of 3% adoption, and we're just at the beginning of the curve, and there's the big curve that's coming. So many more people, as they understand what Bitcoin is, will be attracted in, and we will see a broader spread of, the right brain, left brain, if you will, populace understanding what it is.
100%. And it's super interesting when you think about, I actually get that question a lot when I'm on other podcasts, because I interview so many Bitcoiners and they ask me what's the average Bitcoiner? How would you describe a Bitcoiner?
What have you found?
There's not really the typical Bitcoiner, but there are some things that align with most of them because we are so early in an extreme big revolution. So when you actually look at what the mainstream is looking like, the whole population, and you try to categorize them, which is really hard, but if you try to do that, the average Bitcoiner is the opposite of that. So what's rare in the general population is really common in the Bitcoin population, because we are so early, and it takes a special kind of a person to come early in Bitcoin. It gets less, the effect gets less and less because we are getting more and more, and there's more facets of that coming in. I think sovereignty or freedom, however you want to describe it, is one thing that is really important. Like the individuality, the independence, the whatever the overall word for that is something really important. And then you see the thing with food, you see the thing with education, that thing is just getting into all the pockets in there.
So do you think people come to Bitcoin because they value sovereignty, or do you think they get awakened to sovereignty after it's a chicken and egg thing, isn't it? It's like,
ask myself that all the time. It's because it has a really big implications. Like let's say Bitcoin, like they come to Bitcoin and they actually get awakened to the sovereignty thing. If that's true, what happens if Bitcoin is mass adopted? Like, what happens to humanity if all of humanity go through that awakening? And maybe that's a perfect transition into what you were talking about, the new era.
It's a perfect question, and that is where we're headed. And just on the sovereignty part, I mean, I don't think I realized it until a little bit later, but sovereignty has always been incredibly important to me. I mean, I tell people I'm on my 5th career, so when I said it's been a real zigzag, because way back when I was a dancer, and then I was in the arts and doing art restoration and working for Christie's in New York. And, and then it was finance, and then tech, and then, all this energetic stuff and personal growth things. And I was going somewhere with that, and I just blanked on it.
No worries. I was. We were talking about the average Bitcoin, and then you were asking
sovereignty.
Sovereignty.
So sovereignty has always been very important to me, but I didn't realize it until kind of some of the Bitcoin things came up, and I realized it kind of concretized it for me. I've lived it in my life, making choices that were aligned with what I felt I wanted next, not just following the straight and narrow path. So I've lived it, but I didn't really have the word for it until later, and realized, that's really what it is and why that's been so important to me. Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Also, when you think about the Bitcoin and what's this journey, I'm really now interested in what you think of where are we headed in this new era of this new consciousness of what happens if we go this Bitcoin world that you can maybe see at some conferences or meetups and stuff like that, or in podcasts, and what if that becomes the mainstream thing?
So yes, I would love to share how Bitcoin intersects with this global transformation, this human metamorphosis that I've kind of been referencing. There are a number of significant time cycles. It's kind of hard to know how to describe them, but time cycles that have reached completion simultaneously. So there's a 24,000 year, it's called the Kali Yuga cycle, and we're ending the age of darkness. And you can kind of feel how dark things have been, in corporate America, political, geopolitical kinds of things. And that is completing, believe it or not, in March of this year. We're moving into what's called Satya Yuga, which is the golden age. There's a 12,000 year photon belt cycle, and that has to do with heightened awareness and deeper insights and a collective shift in perceived reality. There's a 1,000 year solar cycle, which means, it's twice as strong solar activity. And we're seeing much, much bigger solar activity happening. And that impacts and affects our physiology, our DNA, a lot of things. And then we have a 248 year planetary cycle that's kind of bringing up revolutionary energies. If you think back to where we were, 250 years ago, approximately, you had the American Revolution, you had the French Revolution. So these revolutionary energies are coming back up again. So all of these cycles are completing simultaneously, which has never happened before. Usually they're kind of staggered out. So we have new cycles now launching, if you will. And many spiritual leaders, past and present, have described this time that we are in. I used to say we're heading towards, but now we are in it, as a great awakening of the consciousness of humanity. So it's a expansion of capabilities past how we have known ourselves as three-dimensional humans with just our 5 senses. So it's an upgrade to our DNA, leading to psychic sensitivities, expanded consciousness, multi-dimensionality, awareness of ourselves as multi-dimensional beings. So we're shifting from really just being mind-focused into heart awareness. I don't know if you know, but there are the same kind of neurons in your heart that are in your brain. And there are more signals going from heart to brain than there are from brain to heart. So this is kind of like a wisdom center and has the capacity to connect in with the entire collective consciousness. This doesn't. This is like playing little, computer programs over and over. But this has the capacity to connect into a much larger sense of consciousness and awareness. And then that awareness of the part that we play in the greater cosmic or even galactic family. We are not just little 3-dimensional beings here. We are spiritual beings. We are actually connected to a larger cosmic and galactic family. So what will we, in this big shift that's happening, what will we be observing moving forward? So we're moving from top-down power over, corporate, political, and governmental structures. So the elites having power over everyone else. Severe financial and human rights inequality that we've seen, and the qualities of separation, division, manipulation, obfuscation, all of the things that are kind of coming to the surface that you're seeing, the shattering truths that are coming up. So we're moving into a higher octave of consciousness, and the qualities that are that holds are cooperation, collaboration, power down to the individual. So we're talking about sovereignty, personal sovereignty, transparency, learning how to be energetic co-creators, because we really are co-creators in this universe, and coming together as humanity in compassion, in unity consciousness. And what we're going to see out in the world in this period are rapid leaps and breakthroughs in science, in tech, in aviation, in genetics, healing technologies, plasma physics, energy systems like free energy, for individuals throughout the planet, and a greater recognition of and contact with non-human entities and technologies, our galactic family, if you will. And you're already starting to see a lot of the, it's already been there. It's just been hidden from us for a long time, that, we've had visitations and, off-planet technologies that were not allowed to be seen by the public. So we're moving from, as I said, mind thought into the wisdom of the heart awareness. And the qualities of Bitcoin totally align with the values and qualities of this new earth that's emerging. So decentralization, equality, individual sovereignty, global, borderless, truth, transparency. All of the qualities of Bitcoin are also totally in alignment with where we're headed. And when you think about everything is energy and frequency, we are bioelectrical beings. We are energy beings. If you kind of, get all the way down to the, subatomic level, it's space in there. Not a lot. There's no real matter, right? When you get into quantum physics. So everything is energy and frequency, and Bitcoin is digital money, whatever you want to call that, store of value, those three things, right? Medium of exchange. It's energy money. It's energy money. So this neutral global money is going to enable and promote the cooperation and peace that is coming in this new period. So there are two broad timelines. It's almost like two trains that are leaving the station, based on an energetic focus here. And one is kind of the old school, fear-based, mainstream tech, synthetic, giving kind of energetic life support to the old systems that are crumbling. And the other is conscious, aware, heightened consciousness, love-based, residing in the frequencies of love and joy and gratitude and compassion and peace, and feeding the timeline of this new earth that we are moving into. And these trains are kind of, they're still going parallel, but they're starting to diverge. There will be folks who still stay on that three-dimensional, I'm operating out of fear and all of those kinds of qualities, and the ones who are really saying, this is where I want to be in my life. And you see a lot of Bitcoiners attracted to compassion, peace, love, all of those kinds of things. You're seeing that in that realm. 2025, this year, hang on one second here, I've got a frog in my throat.
It happens. That's why I have my very big glass of water always with me.
You got a stein. I know.
Yeah, I have a stein, and it usually it gets out of the way very soon.
Yeah. No, it gets, I know, I have a big water bottle too.
I partnered up with Coin Vigilante. This is the most beautiful Bitcoin timepiece that I ever saw created by anyone. Look at that beauty. I love it so much. Coin Vigilante made a perfect Bitcoin watch. That's the perfect, subtle, elegant way to go out there and show that you are a Bitcoiner. And that watch brand is Bitcoin only. And Coin Vigilante just dropped a completely new and amazing Genesis edition of their watch collections. You have the date of the first ever mined Bitcoin block in there. And of course also the block height and which epoch we are currently in. I love the level of detail they put in this masterpiece. And make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. If you watch or listen to my podcast on a regular basis, I guess you already bought some Bitcoin. And now the most important step is to keep the Bitcoin. Keep them secure in a hardware wallet. My personal recommendation for hardware wallet is the BitBox. It's super secure. It's simple to set up. It's also a perfect gift for a friend who has still their Bitcoin on an exchange. And you can get a 5% discount with the code Robin at the checkout. Visit bitbox.swiss/Robin to get your BitBox. And the next step is to really level up your sovereignty as an individual. You have to have the most secure self-custody setup. You have to secure your own devices. You have to protect your privacy. You have to set up an inheritance plan. And depending on where you live, you even want to have a plan B, a citizenship where you can move in case something goes really wrong. And through all those steps, the Bitcoin way is guiding you through step by step. And if you visit thebitcoinway.com/partners/Robin, you even get a 30-minute free call to find out how you can level up your sovereignty.
So 2025 is a real tipping point. When I talked about all of those timelines, can you tell I have a dog in here?
I thought so.
Yeah. Usually he's quiet. So 2025 is a real tipping point because of all of these timelines completing and new ones beginning. So it's a real tipping point. It's a paradigm shattering time. And this has been predicted for eons. Seriously, this has been, Mayan calendars and, very ancient predictions of this is the time when everything's going to shift. And it's this year is going to be very dynamic, very eventful, even more than 2024 was. Hey, come here.
He wants to be in the podcast.
He wants to be in the podcast. He does indeed. So it's going to be a really dynamic, eventful year. And the matrix, as we have known it, we talk about being in the matrix and stepping out of the matrix and being orange pilled, right, is falling away. And that matrix is bigger than the financial, the governmental, the political structures. It really is reality as you have known it on all levels. So it's a time of awakening and shattering truths being revealed. And we're starting to see this. I mean, even just in the last, 6 weeks, the truths that are coming up about just where money is being spent and who's doing what and who's hiding what and all of these kinds of things. So it's a time of dissolution of the old paradigms and the emergence of new paradigms. And the themes of this time are basically death, transformation, and rebirth. If we look at it from numerology, it's a 9-year, and the 9-year is a year of endings. And you have endings and you have beginnings. From the Chinese, excuse me, from Chinese calendar, it's a snake year. Hang on.
Yeah, take a good sip of water.
So it's the snake year, and that's about shedding old skins, old beliefs, old paradigms that are no longer working. And I said these revolutionary energies are very present. And it's the same as 250 years ago, the same kind of energy. And you're seeing it in Germany, in France, the governments, Germany, France, UK, Canada, here. You're seeing things start to fall apart, dissolve. Populists rising up saying, no more of this, right? And if we go even further back to the mid-1500s, the same energies, Copernicus was developing his heliocentric theory, right? That we go around the sun, the sun doesn't go around us. So we're in this true metamorphosis state, and it's a strange place to be because, the caterpillar, before it gets to be a butterfly, it goes through this intermediate state where it's literally goop. I mean, there's just like nothing there, right? It's not a caterpillar anymore. It's not a butterfly. It's just goop, right? We are in that kind of goop stage. And it's, things are just going to be dismantling, falling apart. And it's not going to be a linear process. It's not going to be a nice, even, we're just going to change and gradually, this is jumps in state, instantaneous dimensional shifts, really big shifts happening specifically this year and a little bit into 26 and 27. But this year is going to be massive. And ultimately, at the very personal level, we're being guided to step into the truest, highest versions of ourselves. Bitcoin kind of asks that of us, and this metamorphic process is also asking that of us, encouraging, supporting us in our own personal metamorphosis as well as what's happening in the planet. So I was aware of this timeline a number of years ago. I've been kind of, my friends call me a tracker because I track things from a bunch of different trajectories and a bunch of different ways. And I'm always kind of tracking different energy pathways and shifts and what's happening at a bunch of different levels, tech levels, energy, spiritual, bioenergetic, all sorts of things like that. So I've been tracking this for a while, but I couldn't see how this big, massive transformation was going to play out given the super powerful, entrenched, financial and geopolitical systems that are global, right? And then Bitcoin. When I said Bitcoin was like the puzzle piece that fell into place, it's like Bitcoin is providing not only a key to the dissolution of the old, but it's providing the foundation for the new. So it's creating a new, not just a new global financial system, but it's going to act as a vehicle to support a new social and energetic construct. Like imagine eventually eliminating national borders. So there are no more countries while still keeping and appreciating the unique cultural differences, of different areas, but having one global unified planet rather than all of these separate countries, So I'm calling Bitcoin like conscious money. It has like consciousness. And
sorry, but I think it is also Bitcoin in a way already dissolves a little bit of those borders.
Absolutely.
We're already seeing that where my video editor is in Colombia. So I tried doing the fiat and the Bitcoin payments, and it's possible. Like you can do the fiat payments. Yeah. It's just expensive and it takes a while. But also the Bitcoin payment is like you just need an address, you just need an account, and you can send it there. And it's not like I have to type in his name, his address, his routing number, his account number. Like there's literally a list that didn't even fit on the screen of my phone. I had to scroll down to get the whole list with like country, address, and everything that you have to fill out to make one transaction. Right. And I'm like, okay, why do I need all those informations to send financial energy? I just need an address. Like who? Why do they care who's behind that address? And Bitcoin kind of makes that whole thing, brings the globe already together and dissolves that national borders already a little bit.
Absolutely. And with the Bitcoin advisor, we have 40 advisors all the way around the world. If we were doing separate, we were doing euros and Australian dollars, and it's like we do everything in sats because it makes it easy, right? So it is already dissolving. That's what I'm saying. It's like it's going to support where the planet's already headed in this significant metamorphosis. And
also you said something that you don't think it's gradual, but you think that it will be jumping or something. Like you said, it's basically the Parker-Lewis theory of gradually and then suddenly point.
Right, exactly. And it is, there will be really instantaneous dimensional shifts, state changes. This is not going to be a linear process. That's why when you look at it, you go, okay, I could see that over the next decade. It's like, no. Things are going to happen over the next 12 to 24 months that are going to radically change things. And we can't even anticipate it from where we stand. It's going to be so significant, so profound.
If you had to anticipate it, how would you say is the average life changing?
So how do I even describe this? Let's see. Imagine an event happening that would instantaneously allow you to have higher level consciousness capacities. Have you heard of the telepathy tapes? Are you familiar with that?
No, not at all.
Okay. So there's a woman who, I don't want to go deep down that rabbit hole, but basically, let's see, how do I want to describe this? There's a podcast series, I think it's 10 episodes, where she is exploring autistic kids who we think of them as, and these are nonverbal autistic kids, and we think of them as being diminished in their capacities, but they're diminished in their physicality of being able to convey words, but they're all in there. And so these kids are conversing telepathically with each other over time and space. And it just opened up this whole new realm, and their teachers realize it and their parents realize it. So this idea of being able to communicate telepathically, we won't have to have iPhones, but when you are be able to read someone's energy and read what their thoughts are, lies will not be possible, So it's going to shift the entire, paradigm. And when everybody's consciousness is raised, that's just one example of it. But when the entire planet's consciousness is raised very, very quickly, and this through an event that happens. I don't know what form that's going to take, but I'm hearing it from a number of different directions that will shift it radically. And so we'll have a very different awareness of each other. And that sense of, there's a spiritual concept of basically we are one, where we're just one spirit having these different human experiences, right? And when you realize that you and I really are one, how could I do something that was going to hurt you? How could I not, give you food if you're hungry? So when you have this awareness of that we really are all one, it's not possible to hurt someone, to murder them, to not feed them, to not care for them. So it shifts the entire sense of who we are as humans.
And it's all in that theory of like we have to level up as humanity, of having one communication layer, one money layer, one, I forgot the name, but there's like this scale where we just move up those levels, and we are far down right now because we have we are not that many but we have so many different currencies, we have so many different languages,
yes.
We have so many different
yes.
And the cultural differences are good. Like it's great. There's even like within Austria, mm-hmm. there are like 9 different ways of speaking the Austrian dialect, and the Austrian dialect is different from German, what Germany is speaking, and it's basically the same language. And then the Swiss, it's something completely different. And Germany, Austria, and Swiss in itself, it's not that big, and we have so many diverse places of what you can speak and how you say it and how you pronounce things, and just words that an Austrian in the West doesn't understand, but the East one speaks it every day. Right. So there's those interesting things of like we kind of come to the point of where the whole planet is having one communication layer, however this looks, and one monetary layer, and one, like we're coming closer together as humanity. And there's like social media playing into this, the internet is playing into this, mm-hmm. Bitcoin is playing into this as a technology. So that's really interesting to look at and seeing that transformation.
And at the consciousness level, we're calling it unity consciousness, right? Because it's a unified consciousness, with all of these delightful different cultural differences, right? But you don't have to have separate monies and separate, borders and things like that. So yeah, it's a very different, it's almost hard to wrap our head around because we're just so used to what we've known, right? And to imagine what that would be like.
But yeah, it makes total sense, because now all of a sudden, it's like, even if you bring it down to a practical level, now because we have the internet, the communication layer, we now can consciously see, okay, what's going on in America. Just go back like 100 years. That was very hard to do. And now we have an clear flow of ideas. Now with like Google search was one major innovation where all of a sudden you could search for things and you're like, wow, I don't have to go to the library. And now AI is just, it blows my mind every day.
Right, exactly. And just the technology that has made, the Earth one, where you can get information from anywhere, you can talk to anyone. So that part is happening. But, if you take that and add in a unity consciousness where, there's peace and love and harmony and cooperation and compassion and collaboration and all those wonderful things, it's like an even better version of just the technology, right?
Yeah, technology, I think, is the tool, and a tool for that. I feel like it's like you, and there's like this unity, and we kind of need some sort of tools for that, or like some kind of manifestation for that. And for me, it's just great. Like the closer humanity gets to each other, the better it is. And if we get further away from each other, it's probably not as good. Like this division and this thing is usually not productive.
Exactly. Have you ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Are you familiar?
Oh yeah. That's a popular one.
So kind of we're really moving towards that very top of the pyramid, the self-actualization part of that. Not at the bottom, and it's just kind of like survival, and then just basic needs and belonging and self-esteem, but self-actualization. That's kind of where we're headed as humanity, as humans on this planet.
Amazing. That was really cool. Thank you so much already for sharing that with us. We have one question that I ask each and every one of my guests. Will be interesting to see what you do that. I usually ask, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin? But I would add, besides Bitcoin and all the things we already talked about, like what else is to learn about from you?
I guess there are three things I would really love to leave listeners and viewers with, and the first one is that when I talked about the stage between the caterpillar and the butterfly, we're in the Goop stage. We're in the dismantlement stage. And that stage is going to be very turbulent and very chaotic. And it's really important to support yourself through that stage, through staying in peace and love and stillness, staying grounded, maintaining what I call the observer perspective. You're just watching the drama play out like a bird on a branch, right? Without engaging in it, without getting caught up in it. Ignoring the distractions. In Bitcoin, we say focusing on signal, right? Not the fluff and the other stuff, and taking care of yourself and others, and connecting to like-minded people, communities to share and collaborate, and holding a clear vision of this ideal world that you want to see manifested. So that, during this dismantlement, that's one thing that's really important. The second thing is following your intuition and your heart, that heart wisdom. And making decisions not based on what you think you're supposed to do, what everyone else thinks you're supposed to do. When I talked about that straight and narrow, life path, don't be afraid to make what can feel like a drastic change or a course correction. Because following a non-traditional path, while it can have its challenges, that's for sure, it can create a really juicy life filled with a broad array of experiences that you'll look back on with appreciation and delight. So that's the second thing, follow your intuition and your heart. And the third is, I would really recommend, and it can make this whole time and process easier, is to find an experienced guide, mentor who can teach you who you are beyond the human physical form, and help you kind of expand your awareness beyond the five senses that we're familiar with, and connect in with that higher knowing, that non-physical guidance. We all have guides that are constantly there to assist us. I call it our staff in the sky. And connecting in and becoming more familiar with our personal and the global energy fields. So those three things, take self-care during this really goopy stage, the dismantlement stage, following your intuition and heart, and finding an experienced guide to support you. There's something else that was coming up, specifically because you're in your mid-20s, right?
Yeah, exactly. Mid-20,
Yeah.
26.
So Gen Zs have this opportunity through Bitcoin to create financial and soul sovereignty. You know, not just financial sovereignty, but soul sovereignty. This is some of the things that I've really been talking about here. Much earlier in your life than was possible for prior generations. You get to redefine what success means for you. That's an amazing opportunity that a lot of us, I'm basically a boomer, you know, and we didn't really, I mean, I've made my own way and my own zigzag way through life, right? But, you know, defining what success means. And, you know, when you have that sense of sovereignty, what can that create for you? I mean, spaciousness, creativity, the freedom to fully express your core nature, that essence of who you are in whatever form, you know, it wants to take. Arts, business, living globally, family, you know. It's like, what do you really want to do with the long runway that is available to you? Because you're not in your 50s, 60s, you're in your 20s, right? What do you really want to do with that long runway that's available to you when you have financial freedom, when you have the opportunity to create your own kind of personal renaissance, you know, be in that place? Yeah.
That's amazing. And that's something actually that people tell me I should write about, because I made exactly that shift because of Bitcoin. I had the traditional career 6 years already in a company that I actually liked. The people were there. I liked what I was doing. So I was not frustrated, depressed or anything like that. I actually was kind of happy in the job. The only thing that I didn't like was it was about IT security. I was not crazy about IT security.
Right.
I was always talking about Bitcoin. Like I was the Bitcoin guy in the company. So that was within my job, my passion. It was in my free time, my passion. I really want to talk about Bitcoin, and because I think it's the biggest revolution going on in our lifetime. So I want to talk about that. When I first got some money from Twitter, which is crazy because Twitter is now not even a real income source for me, but that gave me hope. That gave me some signal. It was almost nothing, but I was like, I'm talking about Bitcoin on the internet and I get paid for that.
Cool is that?
Is there more of that? All of a sudden I saw the green grass on the other side, and I was like, oh, I saw for the first time ever, I saw that my grass is not that green, or it can be greener. It can be better. And I just jumped. I had, I think, like 400 YouTube subscribers. I didn't have income. I had like one sponsor that said like, okay, let's try it out for 2 months. And that didn't even work out. So I had no security, no experience in what I was doing. I was just jumping, honestly. I have an amazing family. That's why I could also do it, because they were not saying like, oh, I'm crazy. I think they fought it all, but they kept it to themselves, which I highly appreciated, because it gave me some of the courageousness to actually do that. And the major thing that actually made that happen is I was always saying, if it actually doesn't work out, I can do it for 2 years and I can live off my Bitcoin. And then my Bitcoin also, that's basically the fee that I have to pay for learning that lesson that I will learn in the next 2 years. And luckily, I never had to touch them. I had every month a positive cash flow, which surprises me to this day by just jumping. And now it's more about like just doing more of the things I really enjoy and finding the things that I really enjoy, and doing less of the things that I don't enjoy, which the sponsors make possible, which the community makes possible, which all the things make possible, because now I can hire people for the things that I don't like that much and they like more, and I can focus on the things that I like more, and all of those great things, and starting to be a little bit more entrepreneurial. But honestly, it's more about what do I want to do with the time that is there from like in the morning till the evening, and what can I do that I can't wait to get up. There are days where I stand up 2 hours before the alarm because there's a thought in my head that I just have to execute and I cannot sleep anymore. And those days are not that rare because I really want to tackle the day. And that's the feeling I really enjoy. I don't know if that's the life goal. I have no clue what life wisdom is. But I do like that I enjoy it so much right now. And I do like that, because of Bitcoin, I had the courage to actually take that jump. And I think that could be something really encouraging for a lot of Bitcoiners.
I love that. And there's a thing I call red carpeting. When you are aligned with, what your soul wants for you, and you don't even have to know the details. You just like, I have this intuitive hit. I have to go do this. I'm compelled to do this, right? And it's aligned with what your soul really wants. The universe I call it just rolls out the red carpet for you, and things just drop in that you couldn't possibly have orchestrated. And it's just easy, right? You have that sense of it's just easy. I love that red carpeting. I've had so many experiences in my life where, I made a decision. I moved cross country from New York to California, and I moved to a tiny little town where I didn't know one person. I had to shut down my business here, started up there. I started from scratch, right? But that move was the easiest thing I've ever done. It was just like the perfect mover came in and the perfect packer came in and I found the perfect place to live. And right across the street was an office. The universe just said, oh, we can help you with this. Boom, 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 boom. So if you are aligned, and it sounds like, and that's what I was encouraging people to take those jumps, take those leaps, trust your heart, trust your intuitive impulse to kind of head in a direction. Because if it's aligned with you, you will be so well supported, just like you've been describing.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because I got that question actually yesterday from a fellow Bitcoin podcaster that is kind of starting out now and is a little bit earlier to the game. And she asked me, how did you reach out to the sponsors? And I said, I never reached out to a sponsor. They all reached out to me.
There you go.
That's, I reached out to the first one a little bit, but this is the first one that didn't work. Before the kind of period we worked together was ending, a new one already showed up, and then a new one showed up, and a new one showed up, and
exactly.
I just put in my best effort and proof of work, and I'm always a little bit careful because if I say the universe will take care of it, then people sometimes take it as an excuse of not doing anything. I see some people, even proof of even the low time preference, I see some people taking it as an excuse to be lazy.
Yeah.
And that's where I always have a little bit of problem of yes, there's a lot of things going on above you, things have a tendency to really work out for you if you are following your true passion and you actually take action on it.
Absolutely.
If you just lay on the couch and play PlayStation, even if everything aligns, nothing will happen for you.
Not happening.
So you have to take the proof of work and actually do the things. I worked on the podcast since the starting 70, 80 hours. Now it's actually slowing it down a little bit, and I focus a little bit more on reading and finding other things again because I did so much, and now I can afford to outsource some of the small things. That's always the really important point that I want to lay there, because I see someone the universe will come to me and everything. No, yes, but you also have to take action.
Right.
And that's what you have been doing. And I just wanted to give that small caveat with people.
Absolutely. There's giving, having an intention and then putting your attention on taking action. So intention, important, attention, both of those, create manifestation. Yeah.
Really cool. Perfect. I think that's the perfect point for us to go to the end routine of the podcast. We have an end routine where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. The previous guest asked you the question, what will be the next country to officially announce a strategic Bitcoin reserve?
Oh my goodness!
It's a hard topic.
It's an impossible question to answer. I wish I knew the answer to that. If I knew the answer to that, man, I could just be doing all sorts of things in the background to take advantage of that. I have no clue. I really have no clue, and I don't think anybody does. There are so many countries that that I fully believe are stacking in the background, right? And nobody wants to come out and admit that, because then the whole game theory, is activated. So I think there are all sorts of countries stacking in the background,
Yeah, it seems like only small countries can announce that, because
right.
The game theory that if Russia says like, oh, like we are buying 1,000 Bitcoin per day now,
right, then all of a sudden everything shifts, right? And everybody's going, we haven't stacked enough, So yeah, I think there's so much happening underneath the waterline there, and I personally, I can't wait to see when that happens, because I think it will be a domino effect. All the other countries will start being public about what they're doing.
Yeah, and especially because it's also such a competition of like, imagine like America, like Donald Trump is like, oh, we're stacking Bitcoin. Then Putin is like, oh, like we are stacking more Bitcoin. And then the European Union is like, oh, like we have to stack even more to protect the European Union.
Yeah. And look at the Arab Emirates. I mean, you look at the Middle East, Dubai. I mean, it's like, oh my goodness, they're doing it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure talking with you, Holly. It was really, really cool. I think, I hope the viewers and the listeners appreciate that change of pace in the podcast here and there from the typical topics around Bitcoin and the finances. Before I let you go, where can people find you, ask you questions, and reach out to you?
Sure. And thank you so much for, opening up the floor to a different perspective. I really appreciate being on, and have had a great time in conversation with you. It's really been fun. So my current focus in supporting clients is, financial sovereignty through the Bitcoin Advisor, right? And soul sovereignty and self-actualization through my private consulting company called Bliss Smart. So it's Bliss the Smart Way. That's my consulting practice. And it's funny, I recently took my consulting practice website offline for renovations to incorporate this evolving soul sovereignty focus that I have. So the best way to reach me is through email at info@blisssmart.com. And that's Bliss Smart. So there are 3 S's in there, blisssmart.com. On X, I am bliss_smart. They can reach me on X, or through the Bitcoin Advisor, the bitcoinadvisor.com/Holly to find out more, book a call, have a chat with me. Any of those 3 are good ways to reach me.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being on and taking the time, Holly. And also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye.